name's Andy. I'm an addict. Hey. First, I'd like to say it's a pleasure to be speaking here today. This is my home group that puts this on, so this is quite an honor for me to be up here, be able to share some things with you guys. I'll start off by saying that this is something that I really don't like to do. I'm one of them anxiety-driven on the inside people, but I've been told that I look comfortable whenever I do things. But the reality is I'm full of fear a lot of times whenever I do things that make me uncomfortable. But that being said, I like to do things that make me uncomfortable. Doing things, the way that I view it in recovery for me is doing things that make you uncomfortable is what makes you grow in here. So whatever I can do to make myself uncomfortable, that's what I try to do in Narcotics Anonymous, whether it's doing a reading, doing a lead, speaking, running the meeting, whatever it may be. If I'm uncomfortable, that I'm growing. So I'm completely fine with it, even though I'm filled with anxiety. That's okay. My clean date is February 17th, 2014. That is a day that I hold very, very dearly to my heart. It's a day that I don't intend on giving back. Whenever I think of that date, I remember it as if I remember my children's birthdays. Like it's not going away. That's how I think of it. It's not going anywhere, no matter what. That's how I try to view it. Very important to me. It's like I said, it's just something that's very, very, very dear to my heart, and I don't intend on giving it back. I bring the basic text with me. I was taught by my sponsor to whenever you share, you should share stuff that's in the literature. For some reason I don't like bringing a book up here, bringing the NA book up here. I don't like to carry it around, but I had no problem carrying around a needle, a spoon, a bottle of water, carrying around all my supplies to get high. So why can't I just carry this book around? But for some reason it seems to bother me. Nobody else had a book, but I have the book, seems to bother me. But I was taught to speak with some literature in mind, so that's what I intend to do. With that being said, there is no perfect addict. That's what they say, So all these things here, there is no perfect addict, but the way that I view it is there can be an honest addict. So if I'm just purely honest, then I can be as close to perfect as I can be. There's a few interesting things that I find in the literature that I like to share. One of them is, we always say here in the rooms that it costs nothing to be a member. Membership is free. And it actually does say that in the literature somewhere. It says that it does not cost anything. Okay? But it does say in the very beginning of the basic text, it says, each of us has paid the price of membership. We have paid dearly for the right to recover with our pain. So we have paid for our membership, even though we have not paid physically, monetarily. We have paid for this membership. It says it right in the literature. We paid with our pain. We paid with our emotional pain. We paid with our physical pain, just like it said in the Just for Today reading, interestingly enough. So today I intend to tell you how I paid for my seat. I am in a spot right now in my recovery where I try to be intimate in all things that I do. If I'm ever talking to somebody, if I'm sharing, if I'm just sitting in a room with my father, we're not doing nothing, I try to make sure that it's intimate, because I was not doing that for a long time. So I may be a little bit intimate today with some of the things that I say. My topic was qualifying myself. Qualifying myself. Okay, so the definition of qualify is pretty interesting. I've come to find out it describes the addict perfectly. It describes us perfectly. And I kind of had a mini spiritual awakening whenever I was looking into this. Qualify. Describe or portray the character or the qualities or peculiarities of. On the surface, doesn't sound like too much. Whenever you look into that, there's actually a lot more in depth look at it. You will see exactly what I'm saying. The addict is someone who possesses qualities. We have qualities. Okay, we have character. Okay, we're not bad people. Okay, but we do have character defects. The last part is or peculiarities of. The definition of peculiarities. An odd or unusual feature or habit. So in one sense, you have characters and qualities. The other sense is peculiarities of. Peculiarities of meaning habits. Okay? So I'm trying not to lose you guys here. Peculiarities describes addicts pretty perfectly. We have odd or unusual features and habits. Okay, so whenever people qualify themselves, they like to come up here and they say, I don't really, want to get into any war stories. I don't want to tell you too much about the drug. I don't want to say this or that. But I do want to qualify myself. And I always find that a little bit odd. Whenever what we should be doing in here is qualifying ourselves according to that definition. I'll tell you a little bit about my past and my history, and then I'll move forward with the rest of that. I have an older brother and an older sister. Okay, I grew up in the West End, Sheridan area of Pittsburgh, if anybody knows where that's at. My parents were divorced when I was 2 years old. It was a very, very crazy household. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I would like to say that I may say some things about my mother whenever I share, but I would also like to say that my mother is where I get my strength and my resolve to do what I do in Narcotics Anonymous. My mother was someone who was bipolar, maybe not so much bipolar, but she had depression, anger, and anxiety issues. She had polio as a child, but yet she was voted as the prom queen of her high school. The household that I grew up in was a very, very filthy environment. She was so depressed that cleaning was not one of her priorities. We wouldn't have electric for long periods of time. We wouldn't have water for long periods of time. We wouldn't have other utilities for long periods of time. And if you can imagine, if you don't have running water in your house for a long period of time, what the bathroom situation may end up looking like inside that bathroom. No electric, so we would sleep on the porch. I can remember my mother putting us, me and my brother and sister, in the car before school for a while. We'd go down to McDonald's and McKees Rocks so we could go into the bathroom so we could brush our teeth and wash off with a rag, like before school, and like clean my shirt off with a rag, because I had to wear a uniform to school, so I had to wear a white shirt, which basically meant I had a white, wrinkled, filthy, dirty shirt on, and I would be in the woman's bathroom with her, and she would clean my shirt off, and the typical day at my house was my father pulling up out front and my mother coming out into the street asking my father to run her over, and all the neighbors watching, and then my father revving the engine as my mother stood in front of the car. So that was like the typical day. And then Christmases would be, my dad would pull up and me and my brother and sister would get in his car and we'd have Christmas in the back seat for about 15 minutes. Christmases for my mother would be, we'd go to my grandmother's house because my house was mounds and mounds and mounds of trash. The door was always closed. The curtains were always shut. Don't answer the phone. My mother was paranoid and she did not use drugs. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the phone. They might take you, she said. Who's going to take me? I'm assuming it was Children, Youth, and Family Services, maybe. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the door. Peeping out the windows without the drug is what she did. So you can imagine how much I wanted to get outside of myself. And it didn't take long. I was like 9 years old, and my uncles were drinking, and I was running beers for them back and forth from the keg, and I would drink the top off of it, you know. And at that moment, I had caught a little buzz, and I had found exactly what I was looking for at the age of 9. And it didn't take long after that, into my early teens, for things to spiral out of control. But that history in my household just filled me up. It just filled me up with anger. It filled me up with fear. It filled me up with resentment. It filled me up with pain. And I was trapped inside myself. So, into my teenage years, I really lashed out. I really lashed out in the form of drinking and using drugs. And crime and dereliction and all that soon followed. And some of the behaviors I acted out as a child because of all this. In the first grade, I beat up a nun. My teacher, she was a nun. I beat her up. That qualified me to sit in the closet at the school and wait for my grandfather to pick me up. There were some good moments though. God had blessed me with speed, and I was a really good baseball player, and I was the only 12-year-old to make the All-Star team. 12-year-olds weren't really allowed on the All-Star team. My coach, Mr. Coach Whitaker, God willing, I'll be able to see him again and thank this man. But he was one of the people that reached out to me as a child and was trying to move me forward. But I was always living in those character defects, and I'd always wanted to prove myself. That was one of my things. Prove yourself. I wanted to qualify. I qualified for the All-Star team. Shortly after that was the Pony League. And Mr. Coach Wagner had called my house and said, "Andy, you're signing up for Pony League, right?" I said, "No." He's like, "Why not?" He's like, "You're the next Bill Mazeroski." I said, "I'm too short. I don't qualify. Those guys are too big." He chased me down. He chased my mother down. He couldn't find my father. So I didn't play baseball. So shortly after that, I got heavily involved in drugs and crime and the misery that all comes with those character defects that we live in. Trying to prove myself. I qualified for all the things that bring us into these rooms. And we try to qualify ourselves. We try to prove ourselves. I know that's something that I did. I know that I did it. It says something in here that I really like. It says, "Our misconceptions about the nature of addiction included visions of violence, street crime, dirty needles, and jail." Our misconceptions, I don't know what they're talking about, misconceptions, because my conceptions were violence, street crime, dirty needles, and jail. That was me. I qualified to be here. And the last thing I'd like to say here before I wrap this up, we're running out of time, is the second definition of qualify, is to prove capable or fit to meet requirements. Prove capable or fit to meet requirements. And as they say in Narcotics Anonymous, there's only one requirement for membership, and that's the desire to stop using. So the definition of qualify, in my eyes, perfectly fits for Narcotics Anonymous. But it says prove capable. Prove capable. I spent my whole life trying to prove myself, trying to be capable and do all these things. And so now I have one requirement to meet in here, and that's to prove capable of my desire to stop using. It's something that I intend to do. I intend to maintain. And finally, I'd just like to read this to you guys here. As the old saying goes, addiction makes us one of a kind. Our personal stories may vary in individual pattern, but in the end, we all have the same thing in common. This common illness or disorder is addiction. We know well the two things that make up true addiction: obsession and compulsion. Obsession, that fixed idea that takes us back time and time again to our particular drug or some substitute to recapture the ease and comfort we once knew. Compulsion. Once having started the process with one fix, one pill, or one drink, we cannot stop through our own power of will because of our physical sensitivity to drugs. We are completely in the grip of a destructive power greater than ourselves. When at the end of the road we find that we can no longer function as a human being, either with or without drugs, we all face the same dilemma. What is there left to do? There seems to be this alternative, either going as best we can to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, or find a new way to live. Thank you for letting me share.